Nigeria, as an emerging market, recorded some level of appreciable growth in some key economic parameter in 2019. The marginal growth, which cuts across the real sector of the economy, resulted in an uptick in gross domestic product from 2.1% in the second quarter of 2019 to 2.3% in the third quarter of the same year, while the nation's external reserves had a good outlook. Now, economic policies introduced by the federal government to further drive a sustainable economy encouraged more foreign direct investment with huge impact on the nation's revenue generation in providing an economically viable system for both foreign and domestic business to strive. The Apex Bank, in the year under review, at Monetary Policy Committee meeting, lowered interest rates by 13.5%, as well as provided enough liquidity in the system to ensure the stability of the naira. Now, inflation in the year under review, however, had a slight increase of over 11%, with various measures put in place to address it. Today on Panorama from the Lagos Network Center, we will be taking a look at some economic gains and losses recorded in 2019. I am Jennifer Igwe. Stay tuned. Before the discussions, we first take the news. Now, a crucial meeting of National Security Council has ended in Abuja with resolve by members to put an end to the menace of terrorism, insurgency, and other heinous criminal activities in the country by the year 2020. Already, the council chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari has announced plans to begin tactical withdrawal of the nation's military from internal security operations. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has details.
President Muhammadu Buhari presiding the National Security Council meeting, which lasted about 4 hours, was held behind closed doors. In attendance were the Minister of Defense, the National Security Advisor, Service Chiefs, and the Inspector General of Police, Chief of Defense Intelligence, Director General of the Department of State Services, and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Participants critically appraised Nigeria's security profile in the year 2019, with particular emphasis on the ongoing operations within the country and across the sub-region.
It was generally agreed and noted that the security agencies have done their very best in ensuring that the deliverables are made clear. Just 2 weeks back, we have had over 27 attacks by Boko Haram and ISWAP in the northeast alone. And our gallant troops out there were able to repel these attacks and even take out some of their commanders. It is our wish to have the insurgency and terrorism issues resolved once and for all, to enable us focus on matters of development.
At the meeting, President Muhammadu Buhari appreciated the military and other security services for the improved security situation across Nigeria, saying, however, that a lot still needs to be done towards guaranteeing sustainable peace and development.
Mr. President has directed that the Council and the members of Armed Forces ensure a peaceful society in 2020, and to that effect, we are more than determined to continue from where we stopped in 2019 and to ensure that we sustain our various operations to ensure a secure Nigeria for all of us.
Meanwhile, the National Security Council has resolved to ensure tactical withdrawal and replacement of the military with the Nigeria police personnel from internal security operations across the country.
For those areas that we believe the military has been able to achieve the desired objectives, that in the first quarter of next year, the civil authority will be preparing to take back those responsibilities as the military draws back on its forces in those areas to enable it focus its attention on other emerging threats and areas of concern. The nation is procuring equipment for the military. It therefore means that rather than have boots on ground, we're looking at technology-backed surveillance that will enable the military to react more efficiently and effectively. And with that, it is also believed that Nigerian police will take the lead in containing the security in such areas that must have been assessed to be in their right place to sustain.
The National Security Council meeting was the last for the year 2019. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Now, the federal government has cleared the air over certain concerns over the nation's debt profile, with the assurances that there is no cause for alarm as is being insinuated. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed gave the assurance at a media briefing in Lagos. Anthony Forson reports.
I called this press conference to enable us.
In what turned out to be a federal government scorecard for the year ending 2019, the Information and Culture Minister, Lai Mohammed, brought to the fore major achievements of the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration in the year under review, starting by laying the cards on the table with regards to certain concerns about the country's debt profile, which he said is a cumulative borrowing by successive administrations over many years. Therefore, with the quest to provide infrastructure, borrowing, he said, has become inevitable.
In the face of massive infrastructural decay, no responsible government will sit by and do nothing. This administration's borrowing, therefore, is aimed at revamping our infrastructural deficit, including roads, bridges, railways, waterways, and power, to help unleash the potential of the nation's economy. The loans for the educational sector will contribute to the development of our human capital, while the loans for the agricultural sector will help the move to diversify the economy.
On the economy, Lai Mohammed said 2019 saw an improvement as the economy grew at an average of 2.2% by the third quarter of 2019, compared to 1.7% over the same period in 2018. The oil and non-oil sectors performed creditably in 2019, growing at an average of 4% compared to 2.4% in 2018. Oil production experienced an average daily rise in 3 years, recording a 2 million barrels per day production. There was a steady trend on inflation as year-on-year headline declined from 15.1% in 2018 to 11.9% by November 2019. Core inflation on its part slowed from 12.1% to 9% between January 2018 and November 2019.
Year-on-year food inflation rate decreased from 18.9% in January 2018 to 14.5% in November 2019.
Foreign trade performance in the external sector suggests an increase in diversification of exports. By this token, import value as at November 2019 stood at 11.6 trillion naira compared to 9.6 trillion naira in 2018. Export value stood at 14.4 trillion naira as against 14 trillion naira in 2018.
Key exports of note. While the value of crude oil exports decreased by 3.78%, non-crude exports rose by over 30% in value between 2018 and 2019. Non-oil exports also doubled from about 1 trillion naira to 2 trillion naira over this period.
On fiscal performance, revenue shortfalls were recorded, but prioritization of expenditure led to a high performance. Breaking down the total aggregate revenue position put at 2 trillion naira or 58% of pro rata target, the minister explained that all revenue hit 49% performance. Company income tax stood at 349 billion naira, value added tax 81 billion naira, and customs collection 184 billion naira. Capital importation, as it concerns direct foreign investment, got close to $20 billion, which is 34% higher than $15 billion recorded in third quarter of 2018. Apart from banking and shares, the minister said major sectors that witness high volume of capital inflow in the year under review are telecommunications, production, and services. In Lagos, Anthony Fosun, NTA News.
Now, poverty as a consequence of unemployment has assumed a worrisome dimension in Nigeria. As government continues to find ways of mitigating the problem, in line with President Muhammadu Buhari's plan to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years, what role can a strategic agency like the National Directorate of Employment play in achieving the objective? Kelvin Ebunoye takes it from here. Okay, we'll bring that story in the course of the bulletin. Now, the year 2019 was a mix of economic high and low, with government making decisive policies aimed at promoting growth across sectors. Ruth Ario Samuel, in this report, examines the impact and achievements in the nation's economic sector.
The heartbeat of any nation is its economy. The economy of Nigeria is a middle-income mixed economy and emerging market with expanding manufacturing, financial service, communications technology, and entertainment sectors. It is ranked as the 27th largest economy in the world in terms of nominal GDP and the 22nd largest in terms of purchasing power parity. The country's economy, no doubt, witnessed a huge turnaround with GDP growth of 2.28% in the year 2019, as highlighted by economic experts.
We had a positive GDP growth. This time last year, we were talking about GDP growth of about 1.9% GDP growth. 2 or 3 years ago, we were in recession. But as at Q3 2019, we had a GDP growth of 2.28. So given the trend of performance in GDP growth, I think that has been a good development. It shows that at least something positive is happening in the economy for us to maintain that kind of growth trajectory.
With the land border closure in the year under review and clamp down on importation, the nation was able to generate millions in revenue.
Throughout our collective efforts and efficient strategies put in place, the Area Command was able to collect a total sum of 413 billion 732 million 818,554 naira 19 kobo.
Ranging from growth in agricultural production, exchange rate stability, increase in foreign reserve, ease of doing business, the federal government has continued to take steps to diversify the nation's economy, which is expected to increase the nation's GDP in the year 2020. In Lagos, Ruth Ario Samuel, NTA News.
Thank you, Ruth. Now, like we rightly saw in that report, it shows a remarkable gain in the nation's economy in 2019. Now, joining me on the program today to discuss more on this, I have the Vice President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Gabriel Idahosa. Welcome to our studios.
Thank you.
Now, what is your assessment of the macroeconomic performance in year 2019?
Well, if you are looking at where we were the year before, you will see there are some reasonable indications of progress in certain sectors of the economy. If you look at agriculture, you will say we have had some significant progress. If we look at manufacturing, we are still struggling with the key issues that are there. If you look at entertainment, we are doing quite well. It's growing. Generally in the services area, telecom, tourism to some extent, we are growing. But if you look at where we ought to be. We used to be a member of what is called the 7% club. The 7% club, countries who have been growing consistently at 7%. We have left that club, and we are doing 2%, 2.3, 2.5. And relative to 2018, 2017, we seem to be recovering from recession. But overall, as a country, we still have a lot of work to do to position ourselves for real economic growth. There is nominal economic growth from 0 during recession or minus to 2.1, 2.2, 2.9, almost 3%. But if the population is growing at 3%, 2.9, 3%, the real growth is still negative because we are growing below 3%. It is when we grow beyond 3% on a consistent basis and we are moving towards 4 or 5% that we will begin to see significant growth. So we have succeeded in stemming the recession. We have recovered a growth trajectory. We are now growing, but at the macro level, we are yet to get back to the level where we can deal with the growth challenges we have, because we have to grow at a certain percentage that can enable us deal with the issue of significant poverty. For
so
more than 50% of the economy.
We're not at the height we should be.
Certainly not. If we are growing below, say, 4.5, 5%, at any time in Nigeria, we are not growing fast enough.
But some economic policies and initiatives were introduced in 2019. What impact do you think they made?
They have made, for example, in agriculture, we can see the impact. We are moving steadily towards self-sufficiency in a number of products, and we are likely to be there by the end of this year, especially with the border situation. So we are seeing the impact in that area. The general improvement in ease of doing business has encouraged entrepreneurship. A lot of people are able to start businesses now. It's very easy to incorporate companies in Nigeria now. It's about 2 or 3 days to 10 days at the most. There's improved access to finance. Most of the banks are rapidly increasing credit, propelled by the central bank regulation on the deposit lending ratios. So all of that is propelling the economy to grow. The growth is coming, but it is going at in a range of 2 to 3% and continues at that range, which is good, is much better than recession. But we have to see how we can jumpstart another wave of growth to move from 2 to 3% to something like 4 to 5% before getting back to the 7% club where we truly belong. If we want to take the potential that we have always had, not only in the country, but in Africa, and the resources that we have.
So let's go to the Executive Order 005 for planning and execution of projects, promotion of Nigerian content and contracts, and science and engineering. What impact did that also make?
Generally professional bodies in Nigeria are excited about that order. Essentially, it expands to the whole country the principles of the Nigerian Content Management and Development Board for the oil and gas industry, which has always been there, which has required that most of our businesses or projects, whether in the purely government projects or projects in significant sectors of the economy like oil and gas, should have a very large local content. It has now been spread to the rest of the economy, which means for most construction projects, most of the engineering design should be done in Nigeria. The engineering construction itself should be supervised as much as possible by Nigerian professionals. Generally, professionals are quite happy. There's a significant implementation, especially for new projects, because they are now required to comply. But for old projects where commitments have been made, we still have significant foreign control and participation. We believe that in another 3, 4, 5 years, with consistent application, we'll begin to see its impact in how our projects are essentially controlled by Nigerians. And we find out now in a lot of projects that are coming out, both federal and state governments are requiring compliance with that order. So from the level of conception of the project to design to implementation, The order requires that Nigerians should play a dominant role, not a peripheral role. We should take charge of the conception and design of projects, no matter how large they are, in cooperation with foreigners where we need support. But where we can do it ourselves, the order essentially says we should begin to do those projects on a mandatory basis, not on a voluntary basis by government agencies or even in the private sector.
Let's talk about the closure of the border, the land borders, for instance, has helped in remarkable production of local goods and exports. I want to know your take on that.
Well, I think perhaps the biggest benefit from the closure is a clear manifestation of what the open borders have been doing to Nigeria for so many years. Within the period of 4 or 5 months, from August to now, the farmers, the agro-processing industry, all the value chain in the agriculture, at least, are saying that we can actually feed Nigeria if we have the right policy environment. So
it's essentially a good step in the right direction.
It's a very, very good step, and there's hope that government will see the full benefit if the closure is held within a certain time frame.
Thank you very much. We've been talking to the Vice President of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Gabriel Idahosa. Thank you for coming to Panorama.
Thank you.
We'll take a short break. Panorama continues shortly. Please stay with us.
Call of change, stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. So let the change begin from within. Look at you, yeah, change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. With me, change begins with me.
Welcome back. And on road safety, the Federal Road Safety Corps says it has deployed the use of alcohol star and breathalyzer nationwide to test drivers randomly to determine the alcohol level before embarking on a journey. This is to enable the Corps reduce avoidable road accidents in the country. Personnel of FRSC conducted a test on some drivers on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway.
It has been said that one of the reasons for increase in road crashes during festive periods is drunkenness. To curb this ugly trend that has claimed lives over the years, the Federal Road Safety Corps deemed it fit to randomly conduct alcohol level tests for drivers using breathalyzer and alcoholista.
This one is disposable alcoholizers. It's on the spot. As soon as you just blow air into it correctly, then we'll discover the alcoholic level in you. If it entails where you can still manage to drive, we'll allow you to drive. Once it surpasses the normal level, which is 0.08, then you are not allowed to drive any longer. You have to impound your vehicle and look for another vehicle to carry on with your passenger. So
important is the awareness campaign that we are going to continue. With the pact we have with the BSG group, from now till even up to February, we have already mapped out how we are going to go from one motor park to the other in Lagos State to continue this sensitization exercise.
Some of the selected drivers on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway tested negative and were allowed to continue their journey.
Correct. Nothing.
Towards making the highways safer during the Yuletide, the Federal Road Safety Corps mobilized more than 30,000 personnel patrol vehicles, ambulances and motorbikes along designated routes. In Lagos, Annie Daniels, NTN News.
Up next is Sports Update.